If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. And now, the Sunday address. I've often said that anti-black racism is a group sport. Well, the opposite is also true. Black empowerment, specifically black advocacy, is also a group sport. No one person or even collection of people can do it alone. Everybody's got to put their shoulder to the wheel. The reason that reparations got put on the map in California is because you had black folks out there who spoke up. Big salute to our brother Tariq on that one. And you had all of these Negroes in the state legislative black caucus who got exposed for the traitors to their people that they are. That kind of movement doesn't happen when only one person speaks up. That happens when you have a group of people who decide that we're going to speak up whenever and wherever we can. No one person can be everywhere. No one person can see everything or speak on every single issue. And that's the reason why the black media is not just the people behind the mic, it's also you. And that's the point of this Sunday evening address, is to ask you, what is it that you're doing locally to speak up for the cause where you are? If there's one area that we must focus on improving, it's to make sure that we have bastions and outposts of black empowerment advocacy wherever our people are. And that starts with each individual. The white supremacists understand that principle. They've made it to the point where all of these little white supremacist houses are basically single-cell caverns, and each individual a race soldier. Well, for black empowerment, we have to make sure that we have something to counter that. See, what's happened is a vacuum has formed. Not voluntarily, but it happened nonetheless, and the white media fills that vacuum with anti-black propaganda and lies. White power pays its shills, tethers, sellouts, and suck-ups to come along and to undermine our unity, to do everything that they can to derange our internal politics. Whenever we're trying to have conversations amongst ourselves, there's always some fools who come along and try to see if they can disrupt what's going on. That's deliberate. In order for any movement or organization to be effective, it also has to have coherency. That means everybody's got to make sure that they're on the same page. That's where all of these little disruptors come in. If they don't think that they can undermine your willingness to hear the message, then they'll try to find every way that they can to undermine and otherwise damage the credibility of the messengers. Because after all, if the person who's speaking to you is bringing you good ideas, the best way to kill the message is to tell you that the messenger's wrong and hence everything that they're saying is wrong too. And then that very same person who claims that they're debunking misinformation, how convenient they're also leading you right back into the waiting arms of massa. That train is never late. The reason that these disruptors and other forces of antagonism happen to have found some sort of footing in the black community over the decades is because white power has been backing them up. It's easy to exploit loopholes in group psychology when racial privilege has given you the largest megaphone. People tend to gravitate towards whatever seems to be a bandwagon. Nobody wants to build a wagon. They prefer to see if one already exists. This is where the white media's hype machine comes in. You've heard that expression, fear of missing out? Well, that doesn't just apply to economic ventures and consumer spending. It also goes for political and social movements, too. People look around to see, is there a bandwagon that's rolling, and if so, I might jump on the back of it. But it's always a matter of which one seems to be the biggest and the loudest. So when you got the white media treating someone or some organization like a big deal, well, they can actually manufacture the idea in people's minds that they must be. This is a way to bestow instant legitimacy on white supremacy's tools. This is how white power undermines organizations and movements, by having people isolated. When you get all of your news, views, and take your cues from the white media, of course you're going to be looking and going, oh, those people online, these people are all a bunch of kooks, or at the very least you'll feel like, well, I agree with those people what they're saying online, but I mean, look at the networks, look at the so-called newspapers and magazines. They don't have anybody saying what we're saying, so obviously there must not be many of us. I mean, there's some sort of march or protest that took place, yeah, usually organized by one of the two major parties or some of their apparatchiks and operatives. They leave that part out. Virtually none of this stuff is ever organic. It's usually paid for, propped up, and presented to you by some sort of big money in the background. Now, this is where black grassroots advocacy comes in. The greatest force multiplier that any sort of movement can have are conscientious people on the street who are speaking out. That's how you literally make it where the message is heard everywhere. The strongest form of advertising is word of mouth. Whether you're talking about a movie or you're talking about a movement, it's the same thing. People are hearing about it from a human being, flesh and blood in front of them. But what is advocacy? The word advocate comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call, to summon, as in to call to one's aid. So when someone is an advocate, they're not sitting here doing an advertisement. They're actually coming to somebody's assistance. And that's the reason why we have to make sure that we are out here saying that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. No band-aids and no wallpapering it over. But under white supremacy, not only do we have to be our own advocates, we also have to be our own counsel too. But you can't counsel anyone unless you take out the time to educate yourself, to get informed. Now, of course, it's not the easiest thing to do. There's always a learning curve. And for a lot of people, the most daunting aspect of advocacy is actually having to talk to people. Fear of public speaking is a real thing. But you know what the perfect antidote is for somebody who's nervous about speaking to other people? It's to be informed. When you're someone who knows what they're talking about, and you take out the time to make sure that you get both your words and the information behind them in order, you will find that there's a surprisingly large number of people who are willing to listen to you. Now, I'm not saying get on a soapbox in the middle of the town square, but what I am saying is, you know that there's plenty of people in your immediate vicinity who are in agreement with you. What it seems that people are waiting for is for somebody else to say something. Why not you? Otherwise, you're leaving them up to the propaganda of the white media, and it's going to use its influence because of its ubiquity to force its presence into every space, and they're going to use their power to make their chosen sellouts prominent, and they're going to be calling that person a black leader, no matter what you think, even though most of these cherry-picked puppets aren't leading anyone anywhere and nobody actually listens to them. They got white money behind them to manufacture movements for them. You've got the real thing, if you choose to speak up for it. See, the white media already knows that their little emperor has no clothes. But what they don't know is whether or not you're going to be the one who speaks up and says, hey, look at this naked fool over here. When somebody breaks the ice, when somebody actually speaks up, that emboldens other people who have it on the tip of their tongues too. Other people who see the exact same thing, but they're nervous about being the one to actually say it. On this channel, I've listed for you a number of groups who like to use the word black in their name of their organization, but when you look at their funding, where their money comes from, it's all white people who are giving them money. White people who set them up in the first place. Black front people speaking for white power. They put their crash dummy out front to tell you and me that abortion is the issue that we should be concerned about, or we need to focus on stopping the deportations, anything and everything except for what is specifically for us. None of them ever gets mad about what Democrats aren't doing for us. None of them are ready to chain themselves to a gate at the Capitol building, or do a sit-in at the Capitol or anything else to demand things for us. They won't even speak up for us. That's the problem at the top. We understand that one. What we seem to be struggling with is the necessity for people to make noise at the bottom. See, there's two ways to bring a house down. You can get out a wrecking ball and start smacking it from the roof all the way down to the rafters. Or you can have an earthquake that shakes it from its foundations. This evening address is about telling you that you got what it takes to make yourself heard. It's not about being the most eloquent advocate of black empowerment. It's not about knowing the most facts. It's about knowing enough of them and being bold enough to say it. Too many people choose to wait around looking for somebody else to do it for them. That's what they want. It's easier to do that, but that's also the way that you sit on your hands until the end of time with nothing getting done. Black people must relearn to have the courage to speak up and to do it using our own words for our own benefit. So many people have spent so long trying to condition us and coerce us and manipulate us into living inside a box, telling us what is proper for us to say and that we have to do it just so, because if we don't, then we're going to be messing it up for everyone else, especially the next generation. And it's always these bootlicks, tethers, and shills who are telling us that the most, white power's handpicked puppets. Well, we listen to that kind of claptrap, and look where it got us. And my personal favorite is you got people who say we have to make sure we don't offend anyone by reminding people what they've done to us and what our demands are. After all, they taught us. Black people are supposed to be the peacemakers, don't you know that? White power is at war with us. And what do you call someone trying to be a peacemaker in the middle of a battlefield? You call them a casualty. That's what you call them. So family, I want you to know that the best person to speak for black empowerment is not me or any of the other people who are behind the mic. The best person to speak for it is you. There is no rule book that you should be looking for with the specific talking points. These are all the things we've been saying all along. And yes, you are good enough. And more of you than would likely admit it should know that if you were to speak to your friends, family, and neighbors with the kind of things that you hear in places like this, they would listen to you. The white supremacists understand the necessity to have people on the ground in a lot of different areas repeating the same message. You see, speaking out not only gets their message out there, it also helps them to drown out everyone else who's talking. White noise, you could say. So making it a point to speak up and be loud enough to get heard, that's both an offensive and defensive measure at the same time. And speaking of speaking up for ourselves, the trolls, shills, and plants, they need not apply. People who contribute nothing to the cause can't run their mouths to those of us who have. And if you're still having your doubts or your insecurities about being a spokesperson for Black empowerment, join the club. That's the reason why I started off with the definition of advocate. Like a lawyer in the courtroom advocating for their client, they don't just rush in, they make sure that they do their research first, prepare their opening statements, they make sure that they get it right. Malcolm X said it best. He said that before he spoke on anything, he had to make sure that he got his own position straight first. And you should do the same. You ain't got to get out there and start talking immediately. Take out some time, figure out what it is that you want to say. And then when you get out there, you make sure you say it loud, proud, and most of all, unapologetically. Good evening, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Cloudwalker Z, Andrew Lewis, Nate Wilson, Omari Howard, and Darren Nooks. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.